Well, hello, I'm Misheard with Misheard Song Lyrics, and we're doing Season 4, Episode 203 with Huey Lewis and the News. The Misheard Song lyric is, "You'll say anything to a boy of 5." And the correct lyrics is, "You'll say anything to avoid a fight." Boy of 5 to avoid a fight. It's really close. And I have to give this shout out to my BFF Heidi for sharing this Misheard Song lyric to me, I think a couple of years ago already. And I thought, let's do it because we've never done a Huey Lewis and the News Misheard Song lyric. So we're talking about his song or their song, If This Is It. If this is it, please help me now. It's a song by, of course, American rock band Huey Lewis and the News, and released as the 4th single from their #1 album from 1984 called Sports, and became their 5th top 10 and 3rd consecutive #6 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. It actually also reached #5 on the adult contemporary chart, and then became their first UK hit single, reaching #39 in the UK singles chart. So it did quite well. So let's talk about Huey Lewis and the News first. Well, who are they? They're an American pop rock band based in San Fran, California. They've had a lot of hit singles during the 80s and early 90s, eventually achieving about 19 top 10 singles across the Billboard Hot 100, adult, contemporary, and mainstream rock charts. They say, or most say, critics say, that a lot of their sound is from pop, rhythm and blues, and doo-wop, which I can hear that with all the tight harmonies. And their own material has been labeled as blue-eyed soul, new wave, power, pop, and roots rock. So the group's first 2 albums were well received, with Huey Lewis's personal charisma as a frontman gaining notice from publications, as they say, such as the Washington Post, but still they struggled to find a wide audience. It wasn't until they came out in 1983 with their most successful album called Sports, that I mentioned earlier, along with, thanks to MTV music videos, that helped slingshot the group to worldwide fame. That's how I got to know them when I was in my teens. Then they just blew up once they did the song, The Power of Love, for the Michael J. Fox movie, now cult classic from 1985, Back to the Future, because that was the theme song. And now everyone knows Huey Lewis and the News. And because of The Power of Love, it was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song at the 58th Academy Awards. Then the group's 1986 album called Four, with an exclamation mark, produced 2 further #1 singles in Stuck With You and Jacob's Ladder. And then the other top 10 hits include Do You Believe in Love? Do you believe in love? Heart and Soul, I Want a New Drug. The Heart of Rock and Roll, If This Is It, the song we're talking about, Hip to Be Square, I Know What I Like, Doing It All for My Baby, and Perfect World. And then they actually, as a group, did an album and released it back in February 2020, so right before COVID, called Weather. How did they start? So way back in 1972, yikes, 51 years ago, singer, harmonica player Huey Lewis and keyboardist Sean Hopper joined the Bay Area jazz funk band called Clover. At the time, Clover recorded several albums in the 1970s, and in the middle of the decade transplanted themselves to Britain to become part of the UK pub rock scene. I did not know that. Without Lewis, they eventually became the backing band for Elvis Costello's first album, My Aim Is True. At that time, Lewis also worked with Irish band Thin Lizzy. Did not know that. Contributing harmonica to the song Baby Drives Me Crazy, recorded on stage for the Live and Dangerous album. And the Thin Lizzy, bassist vocalist Phil Lynott introduces Lewis by name during the song. The band returned to the Bay Area by the end of the 1970s. Let's get back to Clover. Clover's main competition in the Bay Area jazz funk scene was a band called Soundhole, whose members included drummer Bill Gibson, saxophonist, rhythm guitarist Johnny Cola, bassist Mario Cipollina, brother John Cipollina of Quicksilver Messenger Service. And like Clover, Soundhole had spent time backing singer Van Morrison. That's good to know. After getting a singles contract from Phonogram Records in 1978, Huey Lewis joined Hopper, Gibson, Cola, and Cipollina to form a new group called Huey Lewis, and get this, and the American Express, like the card. Although they played gigs under that name, in 1979 they recorded and released a single simply as American Express. The single was called Exodisco. A disco version of the theme from the film Exodus was largely ignored. I got to check that out on YouTube. And then the B side of this record, called Kickback, was a song that had previously been performed live by Lewis and his former band Clover. Then in 1979, the band was joined by lead guitarist Chris Hayes and moved to Chrysalis Records, which occurred after their demo tape was heard by Pablo Cruise. I love him. I love me a Pablo Cruise, yacht rock. Manager Bob Brown, who helped them land a record deal with the label. Now, Chrysalis did not like the name American Express, fearing there could be some trademark infringement charges from the credit card company. So they said, you need to change your name. Hence now, later in 1980, the band released their first studio album, a self-titled LP called Huey Lewis and the News. And unfortunately, that went largely unnoticed. So in 1982, the band released their second studio album, the self-produced Picture This. The album did okay, it turned gold, fueled by the breakout success of the hit single Do You Believe in Love, written by former Clover producer Mutt Lange. I've talked about Mutt Lange throughout other episodes with his help in, I think it was Shania Twain, his former wife, and her hits, as well as Def Leppard. So here he is here helping with Do You Believe in Love. And largely because of the single, the album remained on the Billboard 200 album chart for 35 weeks and peaked at number 13. The follow-up singles from Picture This was Hope You Love Me Like You Say You Do and Working for a Living, followed with limited success. But at least the Mutt Lange produced Do You Believe in Love got him on the map. So let's talk about Huey Lewis first too. Is his name really Huey Lewis? Well, his name, given name, is Hugh Anthony Craig III. So he is a third. Born July 5th, 1950. So he just had a birthday recently. He's an American singer, songwriter, and actor. He also have done several acting gigs. So after he did a cameo appearance as a teacher in the movie that I talked about with Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future, there are some more roles he received. He included a role as Vern Miller in Robert Altman's ensemble feature Shortcuts, and Ricky Dean in Duet. So I think he plays Gwyneth Paltrow's dad, and a lot of karaoke in that movie. He also performed occasional television roles such as one including One Tree Hill, The King of Queens, and a recurring character on Hot in Cleveland. Lewis provides the voice of Bulworth, the junkyard dog, in the animated series Puppy Dog Pals. I did not know that. Then in 2013, he played himself in a parody of his mention in American Psycho with Weird Al Yankovic, because they used that song. I think it's Hip to Be Square is maybe what the song they used in American Psycho, but again, he's in a parody. Then on October 21st, 2015, so about 8 years ago, on an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live, Lewis reprised his role from Back to the Future in a segment where Marty McFly and Doc Brown arrive in the time machine and talk to the host. Then on February 12th, 2021, he played himself on the episode of The Blacklist. Personally, he lives on a ranch near Stevenson, Montana, and that's where he considers his permanent residence. He married his manager's secretary as Sidney Conroy back in 1983 in Hawaii. Then they separated 6 years later, so I'm assuming 1989. They do have a daughter, Kelly, and a son, Austin. And then in April 28th, I just heard about this, it was revealed that he had a hearing loss as a result of Meyer's disease, and had to cancel all upcoming tour dates. And I knew about this. I had several friends post on Facebook and social media that, oh no, he has this disease and he probably won't sing anymore. So that was sad to hear. So what is Meyer's disease? It's a disease of the inner ear that is characterized by potential severe and incapacitating episodes of vertigo. Yikes. I've had just a small bout of vertigo. The spinning, I can't imagine having it the whole time. Tinnitus, or ringing in the ear, hearing loss, and a feeling of fullness in the ear. That sounds horrific. Typically, one ear is affected initially, but over time, both ears may become involved. Episodes generally last from 20 minutes to a few hours. The time between episode varies. The hearing loss and ringing in the ears can become constant over time. So he no longer sings and performs. So that's why. All right, so let's talk about the music video. Have you seen it? It's iconic. It's definitely an 80s music video. It was actually filmed in Santa Cruz, California back in June of 1984. It shows here Huey Lewis is playing this character. He's trying to reconcile with his ex-girlfriend, played by Janet Cross, and then sees her on the beach at a line of Midway amusements with other men and has a flashback of a romantic night with her. His ex's friend, Sandra Wilder, watches Huey's frustrations and feels sorry for him. After one last effort by Huey to win his ex back, he sits along the beach as the crowd fades away. His ex's friend, played by again Sandra Wilder, then appears smiling at Huey, and they walk away together toward the boardwalk. The video ends with a family who spent hours from the beginning of the video looking for an open space on the beach, finally locating one in exhaustion, only to be attacked by, I'm going to just call it a land shark, because you just see a fin underneath the sand, and that charges towards them. I think that's hilarious. And then the band in itself, the News, also appears in various scenes on the beach, some of them with their heads out of the sand, with Huey Lewis behind them singing. One which features them singing the chorus, like I said, buried with their heads above sand. And then a comedian, John Means, appears as the ball toss manager. In an interview with the blog Noblemania, Cross recalled the challenges of playing Lewis's irritable ex-girlfriend. She says, looking angry at Huey Lewis was tough. She said, the whole filming was hilarious, one stunt after another, and all the different boyfriends they gave me. When you and I were pretending to fight, it was hard not to laugh. I can only imagine. The video itself is directed by Ed Greeley's, who also directed the band's video for The Heart of Rock and Roll and Stuck With You, as well as Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun and Time After Time. Also two other iconic videos. And this is interesting. When you watch the video, check it out on YouTube, it starts with a snippet of another Huey Lewis and the new song, I Want a New Drug, at the beginning part of it. Also from the same album, Sports. So I bring this up because I had mentioned I Want a New Drug back on season 1. So we're season 4 now, episode 34, when I talked about the Ghostbusters misheard song lyric where people have heard them say, those bastards instead of Ghostbusters. Well, the reason why I bring up I Want a New Drug goes in 1985, Lewis actually sued Ray Parker Jr. over a lot of similarities between Parker's theme for the 1984 movie Ghostbusters and Lewis's I Want a New Drug. And what happened was the case was settled out of court with both parties agreeing to keep the settlement secret. But in 2001, Parker sued Lewis, alleging that in Behind the Music episode, Lewis had discussed the settlement in violation of their non-disclosure agreement. But I could not find if Lewis had to now pay Parker back. But I just think it's so interesting that that song, I Want a New Drug, was in the beginning part of If This Is It video, but also has that sort of pass of the lawsuit. So there you go. Lots to hear about. It's not about a boy of 5. It's about avoiding the fight. And in the end, he ends up hooking up, sounds like, with his ex's friend. So there you go. If you have great suggestions like this, please send them to any of our social media sites at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or you can just send me an email like some people have done at our email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs @gmail.com. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.